Good afternoon, my friends. This is Paul, and today I'm going to be reviewing to you Doki Doki Literature Club Plus for the Nintendo Switch. One thing I have to commend right off the bat is that the creator did the work for me. Normally I have to put content warnings at the start of my videos when I'm reviewing an M-rated game. But in this game, as soon as you start it up, the creator is like, yo, this is going to be a pretty intense game for a supposed romance simulator, so you want warnings? And even if you don't want warnings, you can have the game be like, yo, this scene right here is about to be potentially disturbing. It's like when I'm playing Danganronpa with my best friend. It's coming to the Switch soon, and I have to say, this scene might be disturbing. So it's nice that the game itself puts those warnings in there. Now, on to the review. But before we get started, because this has plus in the title, I'd like to go over some of the new things in case you've played the original Doki Doki Literature Club and you're like, why would I want to double dip on this? Well, first of all, there are some new side stories that you can unlock. There are 6 of them in total, and each one is a two-parter, where you get to see from the perspective of the girls in the club, because most of the time you play from the perspective of the protagonist, which you name. But this time you can see what happened before the protagonist entered the club, and these are really good, and they're pretty long too. In fact, the creator even outright said that they roughly equal 50% of the actual game's script. Like, they're that long. Some of them even have new artwork and music tracks. Speaking of music, there's new music too. There are now 26 tracks in total, and 14 of them were composed just for this remix. Now, most of them you have to unlock, but the songs in this game are honestly really good. They manage to fit the mood absolutely perfectly. Most of the time they're pretty whimsical, but sometimes they get into pretty interesting territory. And there's even an in-game soundtrack player, which apparently is new to the Plus version. So if you want to arrange it in a playlist Super Smash Bros. Style, you can totally do that. The final 2 new features that I can think of are there's new artwork, and the game's graphics have been bumped up so that it has a much higher resolution and cleaner look than it did on its original release. Now let's talk about the game itself. Now at first glance, this does not seem like the kind of game that I would like. It's a game where you control a male protagonist that you get to name. I chose to name mine Daniel, but I highly recommend you name yours after your actual name. If you're a girl, then I would still highly recommend using your actual name. As the game progresses, it'll make a lot more sense. So the premise is that the main character is the only guy in a literature club that's composed entirely of females. There are 4 females in this club, and each of them have wildly different personalities, and the main character is interested in wooing one of them to be a romantic partner. And the game encourages you to try to single out one of the girls that you think will make a great match for you. So in other words, it comes across as a dating simulator. However, the actual gameplay is pretty minimalistic. You're mostly just reading and keeping up with the text, but then occasionally the game will ask you to write poems for one of the girls. You basically choose a word from a category, and these words seem pretty abstract at first, but the goal is that you want to pick words that the girl of your choice would like. There's an indicator on the left of the screen, and the girl will jump up and down if you pick a word that they like. And overall the game will change depending on who you impress the most with your poems. This is a lot of trial and error at first, and it's best if you don't look at a walkthrough, but just in case you're confused, the game does give you an option to pull up a PC desktop of sorts, and if you look through the game's files, which is super weird to say that for a Switch game, you can actually see a cheat sheet that'll tell you every girl's word preferences. So you can use your Switch capture feature, or you can write them down on a piece of paper or notepad if you're really determined, I want to do the Yuri route, so I want to do all of Yuri's words. If you're a completionist, you're going to, of course, want to get all of the girls, and that's where the PC part of the game really comes in handy, because this game is kinda anti-completionist at first glance, but you do have the option to reset at any time. However, if you do that, then all of your unlockables will save. Just as long as you don't delete your actual save data, then you can still go for the 100% if you're a completionist. As you unlock new artwork, you can review the poems, and there's even some artwork that's never before seen, including concept sketches, which is new to this Plus release. The other choice that you make is every now and then you'll have decisions that can branch the storyline in different directions. The most common decision is who do you want to show your poem to first. Of course, the other characters will have different things to say depending on what order you give them. Mostly it's just for getting the extra features in the menu that you would want to prioritize the order and who would like it. Other times you'll have choices that'll usually be like, which girl do you want to impress in the moment. If this seems really boring to you, it probably will be at first. However, Doki Doki is classified as a psychological horror game, even when you go on the eShop and look at the description. So while it comes across as very cutesy and anime-like at first, it very quickly changes directions. And then this game becomes very... I really don't want to spoil it for you, but it gets pretty intense, but in like a satisfying way. And by the end, I was like, wow, this is way better than I gave this credit for. So if you're the type that doesn't like romance simulators, you're probably going to like Doki Doki Panic anyway. Did I just say Doki Doki Panic? That's the name of Super Mario Bros. 2. I'm just going to keep that in the script because I don't have enough bloopers. But the point is that this is more than meets the eye. You really shouldn't go into it thinking, it's just a romance simulator. If you're a girl, you might be thinking, oh, I don't want to flirt with other girls, but I assure you, it is definitely worth persevering through. However, if you're the type that only wants the romance part and don't want the horror, I can safely say that there will be a girl at the end that asks you a very serious question, and the girl won't be wearing school clothes. She'll be wearing her normal, casual attire. And right after you answer that question is when the horror elements come in. So if you just want to say, rent this, because there is a physical version coming out, then you can totally do that. But I highly recommend you don't do that, because the real thrill of the game is getting to the true ending, which honestly doesn't take too much effort. Near the end it requires a bit of thinking outside the box, but it's really satisfying to see what the game has to say, and it's even more satisfying when you watch MatPat's Game Theory episode and see how he went into an insane amount of going through the game's files and decoding cryptic messages. It's kind of mind-blowing how much this game has to offer when it seems so simple at first glance. So with that, I highly recommend giving Doki Doki Literature Club Plus a go. I also recommend that if you're the type that needs reading glasses, or if you have a hard time with small print, I recommend playing this on the TV, as the default print size can't be changed and the options are even smaller. So if you don't want to keep squinting all the time, you probably want to play on the TV, which significantly increases the size of the font. Now there's no voice acting, but that's honestly kind of a good thing, because I don't normally like Japanese voice acting a whole lot, but if you're not going to have Japanese voice acting, then at least don't have English either. And I think that's a good compromise, because it sort of allows you to fill in the blanks of the character voices yourself, because a lot of us, when we read books, we tend to insert our own monologues into the characters, and this gives you the option to make them sound however you want. So it gives you a lot of player choice. I also really admire how this actually wasn't made by Japanese people, but yet it perfectly encapsulates that anime style feeling without feeling too much like an anime. Again, trying really hard not to spoil stuff. So hopefully I was able to answer all of your questions. I kept a couple of things deliberately vague on purpose, because I went into this almost completely blind, and I'd like to think that that was the best way to do it, as I was able to be properly surprised by the horror and psychological thriller elements that were introduced later in the game. Again, if you're the type that cannot handle that, the game does give you 2 ways of warning you. But if you're the type that's under the age of 17, or if you just cannot handle horrifying imagery, then you can just safely skip this. But to anyone who has a strong stomach, I highly urge you, if you don't like romance simulators, this is the game for you. Because I don't like romance simulators, and I love this game to pieces. So I definitely urge you to give it a try if you're mature. So with that, thank you very much for watching. Let me know in the comment section if you have any questions or if I failed to clarify something. And until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and don't judge Doki Doki Literature Club by its cover, or you will be missing out on a surprisingly good time. Bye!